Hey there guys, welcome back to the Artifacts YouTube channel, and you might be thinking, a tutorial video on Saturday. Well, I want to talk to you guys. There's gonna be a new kind of video coming to you on Saturdays. I'm gonna do one of these, I guess two times a month. I would like to do this every week, but I don't know if I actually have the time to do 2 a week, so I'm gonna do one. I'm gonna do 2 each month, so it's gonna be like the first and third Saturday of the month, or the second and fourth Saturday of the month. I'm gonna do 2 a month. Let's say that for now. I might do more in the upcoming future, but for now, I think this is what's gonna work the best. So this new kind of video is called Sound Design Saturday. And as you know, sound design is a really important thing in music production. So I wanna, talk a little bit about it. Sound design itself consists of a couple of different things. There's a lot of ways you can make sound and how you can design sound. So for instance, you've got synthesis. Synthesis is probably the most used technique when doing sound design, where you actually use a synthesizer to create a particular sound, and you can then process that sound even further. Another technique is using recording and processing. Now, recording and processing are used a lot in sound design. A lot of people will say like, oh, but you don't design the sounds. Sound designing is done with synthesis, but recording and processing is such a big part of sound design. For instance, take a look at drum and bass producers. They do sound design so much, and not only when making bass lines. I mean, they might make a bass line with a synth, so that involves synthesis, and they will record some kind of an organic sound, whether this is dripping water from in your sink, or whether this is some kind of a high pressure washer or anything like that. They record that, process it further, and layer that on top of their synthesis sound to create something a lot more interesting, and that is what I call sound design. So in this video, I'm not gonna bother with synthesis for now. I'm gonna bother with recording and processing. So I'm already gonna skip the recording part because I've got my recording here. Why I've done that? Because I've actually already recorded this video about 30 minutes ago. I did a 35-minute recording of this Sound Design Saturday, and I've only had to find out at the end that I forgot to record my voiceover, so I'm gonna do it all over again, but I don't want to do this recording again. So that's why I took that. I already placed that here. Let's start off with showing you what I've got. So this video is gonna be about how to make that top layer that's gonna sit right above your drum and bass drum loop. So drum and bass or Neurofunk drum loops are really important, and the top high end of those drum loops is also really important. So I've got a really simple drum loop already laid down, and that sounds like this. A really generic drum and bass loop, but it works. It sounds great. Got a interesting kick drum, just one kick drum sample, one snare drum sample, and a hi-hat playing on each beat. I made the samples a little bit shorter. As you can see, I can bring up the fades. I did that to make these samples really short and snappy, because that's the way I like my sounds. And I'm going to layer in a top layer. Now, this top layer that I recorded is a really interesting one, and I want to show you why. As you guys know, I have been really active in the beatbox scene. It's a little bit less right now. I don't beatbox that much anymore, but that doesn't take away the fact that I can actually beatbox. So I've got this little loop that I beatboxed in. It's basically just some kind of a whoa, how do you say it? Sometimes it's like a noisy kind of percussion loop, and it's really simple. When you blow out air with your teeth closed, and you sort of like cup your hand around your mouth, you will get some kind of a white noise kind of sound when you blow out air. It's gonna sound like this. See, that sounds almost like white noise. If you filter out the low end, you'll have pretty good white noise. But you can also do this in a rhythmic kind of way, and I did that and I recorded it. Now I don't want to re-record it because this one is pretty much spot on, but I can give you a little bit of a demonstration. So when you do this, you get something like... See? Something like that. So I did that, recorded this. Let's drag it over to our time frame. And I'm gonna zoom in. Now, as you can see, some hits are a little bit off. I didn't record this with a metronome or anything, so it's a little bit off every now and then. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to fix that. I'm gonna open up the loop. First, let's consolidate it. And as you can see, it's a little bit off. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna add a warp marker right at the start of the first sound, and then I'm going to delete the first one. I'm also going to add one at the end, and I'm gonna drag it right to the start of our sample. So that first one, it almost hits right exactly in the right place. I see that I can do it like that. Yeah. So right now our first one hits exactly on the beat. So the next one that I'm gonna adjust is the snare drum, which is this drum, this one. Drag it all the way to there. Then I'm gonna fix this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and that one. Now I can do the ones that fall right in between these ones. I'm doing this a little bit fast now. You know, I might want to take a little bit more time like this, zoom in to make sure I'm actually perfectly spot on. Do it like that, drag it over there, and that one falls right exactly good. Let's see. Got one more. It's about there. I've got this one, which needs to be there. I've got that one right there. This one right here. Let's see. That one right there. And the last one right there. So now the entire loop is warped and sounding good the way I want it. So I can close this down a little bit, and I'm gonna play the sample that I've got right here. So this is the sample warped, and it sounds like this. And it's good, but I want to do a lot more to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the warping mode to beats. And then I'm gonna go here, right here where it says preserve. I want to preserve the transients, and I don't want it to play the transient and then play the reversed version of the transient until it reaches the next transient. I want it to actually stop after it played the transient. So I'm gonna take this one, and right now we're gonna get something that sounds a bit better than the last one that I showed you guys, because it's actually going to preserve the transients. It's not going to warp the individual transients, it's just gonna warp the loop in terms of tempo, but the samples itself will stay intact for each transient, and that way it will sound a lot better. So now there is some things that I need to do. Because this is a recorded loop, the snare right here sounds different from the snare right here. I find that this one has a little bit more of a pronounced transient itself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that one. I'm going to select this one, and then I'm gonna control click and drag it over to this snare, and to this snare, and to this snare. So now every snare sounds exactly the same, which is a lot better. Now I'm going to take this one, and that's the hit right before the snare, and I'm gonna place that right before this snare, and right before that snare, and lastly right before that snare. So every hit before the snare is also the same, like that. Now I'm going to listen to these sections, the faster sections. I've got 3 of them, and I'm gonna decide which one sounds best. So I like these first 2 of this one, and I like these 2. So let's take them to here and select these and drag them over here. So now these fast parts are also the same for each and every part. So we get. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to fill out this little gap right at the end. So I'm gonna take this one, which is the one that's hitting right after the snare, and I'm gonna place it right after it, and we'll get. And there's your loop. I'm now gonna consolidate this, so we have one single loop. And now it's time to actually start processing this. The first thing I want to know is whether this sounds good with the actual drums together. So let's play the full drum loop and see how this sounds. So it sounds pretty good. We've went from this to this. Now, obviously, we are clipping on the master, and as you can see in my recording, that's not what we want, so I need to fix that later on, but there are some things that I want to do first. So let's solo this one, and I'm going to add in a EQ8 to this particular loop, and I'm going to high pass it. I'm going to take the normal high pass and high pass it quite high, like that. And then I'm gonna add another high pass, and this is gonna be the more sharp one, and I'm gonna, you know, bring in some more of that mids around 1K. And I think this really sounds great. So now I can actually start you know, fiddling around a little bit with this. One thing I do think is that there is a little bit too much noise between the individual transients, and I want to take that away a little bit, so I can do that by using a gate. I'm gonna drop the floor all the way to 0 dB because I don't want any noise between the sounds, and when I play this you're not gonna hear anything, most likely, because the threshold is set way too high. Let's take a listen. Right, So you can see that the threshold, which is this particular line, is at minus 12 dB, but the actual signal is way below that. So we need to lower the threshold until we can hear the individual transients kicking through again. So there's your snare. So that works pretty well. We went from this to this. And as you can hear that the spaces between the individual transients in this loop are actually becoming a little bit more quiet, and it makes each individual transient seem to be a bit more pronounced. Now, I really like that. That's something that I really love to do when I'm using this technique. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of distortion. For this I'm going to use the Ruby Tube by Silver Spike Audio. Normally when you turn it on, when you load it up, it's set to the limiter. And I'm going to set it to the shaper. And I'm going to add in a little bit of wave shaping. So we went from this to this. Makes it a little bit louder, adds in a little bit more distortion, which is quite useful when doing these kind of drum loops. So let's listen to how it sounds together with the drums right now. I think it sounds pretty good. Now I'm going to add in Shock Audio's Transient Shaper after the Ruby Tube. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drive the input. I'm basically going to drive it a little bit. With that, it's going to add in a little bit more distortion, a little bit saturation. You can see it by this saturator, how do you call it? Saturator knob display. It's not actually a knob, it's just a light that lights up when saturation is being added. And it actually makes it seem a little bit more loud. So then I'm gonna add in a little bit of attack, and that attack will really add in that saturation on each individual transient. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this even more short by taking out a little bit of release, and that way we'll get it's just a tiny bit, but overall, when I turn them all off, we went from this, or let's see, I can do this when I group them. We went from this that really noisy kind of loop to a much more pronounced loop. Which sounds a lot better. Really, it sounds so much better. So now I can actually add in an EQ8 after the Transient Shaper and Ruby Tube to make sure there's no low frequencies coming through after the distortion. And that makes it sound a lot better. So now what I want to do is I want to add in a little bit more character in the mid frequencies. So I'm going to add another audio track, no input selected, and let me check if my voiceover is still recording. Yes, great, because last time it didn't. And now I'm going to go to my sample library. Let's see, that one. And I think I've got an interesting loop. It's this one. It's by a free sample pack from Mako, which is the pendulum style beat number 4. And I'm going to drag that in right below this. And you can see that the actual transients in this loop pretty much are exactly the same of the loop I just recorded. I mean, it is the same. It's the exact same pattern. And that is why I selected this loop in the first place. Because I don't have to chop it up again and rearrange the little bits and pieces. So I'm gonna take down the volume because this loop is quite loud and it sounds like this. So I want to take that mid character from this that you find in that little percussion kind of drum sound. I want to add that into my loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an EQ8 to this. I'm going to add a high pass, and I'm going to high pass it so that it's high pass just above the frequency where the snare peaks. About there. And then I'm going to add a low pass to about there. So together, these two loops sound like this. So, I am going to do something now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an audio track again, and I'm going to turn the input to resampling. I'm going to arm enable this track. I'm going to turn looping off for a moment, and I'm going to press record. Oh, go all the way to the beginning, press record. So now I've recorded our loop, I can solo it and I can get rid of these two particular tracks and turn looping on again, and now we have this. So I'm going to add in an EQ8 just to make sure there are no low frequencies in here, and I'm going to shape the mids a little bit. And I'm going to add in a high shelf, make the Q a little bit sharper, and then raise the gain to bring out those high frequencies a little bit. So that already made our loop a lot better, but there is a lot more we can do with this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the volume of this to -5 dB. So right now we just get a little bit more headroom, which is pretty useful because I'm going to add another plugin. Let's go and add Tone 2 Filter Bank. The Tone 2 Filter Bank is a really great filtering plugin. I use it a lot on my bass sounds. I also use it when I'm doing those big distorted gabber kick drums, if I need any. But you can use it for so many different things. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to take off the LFO on the filter. I'm gonna bypass this little filter right here, or yeah, let's just bypass it. I don't need that filter right now. And I'm gonna take off the delay. So right now, it's most likely already gonna sound a little bit louder. This is before the Tone 2, and this is after. So you can hear it really brought up the volume. I'm gonna add in the compressor and just add in some more compression, which is gonna make every little part of this loop seem to be a little bit louder, and it's gonna add some more harmonics. So that's being done. Next thing we're gonna add, let's see what we got. I'm gonna add in the GB Smash Pro, which is basically, it's something, it is a compressor. You know, this is a compressor, but I can change every little thing in here, and it's really, really interesting. I want to compress the high frequencies a little bit. So let's add in some compression to the highs, like that. And I'm gonna add some compression to the mids, just a tiny bit. So after I did this, it now sounds like this. The high frequencies just got a lot more compressed than the mid frequencies. It's a really, really great plugin. You sort of like can compress in terms of frequency, which is pretty interesting because it basically is a multi-band compressor with a lot of bands, and I really like that. It gives you a lot more control than just a normal multi-band compressor. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in some makeup gain to bring out these high frequencies a little bit. And I'm also bringing up a little bit of these low mids. So our loop got a little bit less loud right now, but it does sound really, really good. One thing I found out though is that each snare hit really adds a lot of volume to our main snare. And since our main snare is already pretty loud, and combined with this, I find that it adds a little bit too much to the main snare. So what I can do is basically make this an individual clip, zoom in, and select the fades and take out some of that of the transient. So now I can duplicate this over the other snares, like that, and I'm gonna take out some of it right here, so it's gonna be like that. And now our loop sounds like this. I'm also gonna take out a little bit of that first one. So we just lost every transient of the main kicks and the main snare, but that's not a problem because we get those transients from our main kick and snare that I've already have right here, and this is just going to be the top layer of our sound. So the last thing I want to do is add in an EQ8 after this, see if there really is no low frequencies, and there aren't. I can do this if I want, make it a little bit and maybe add in a low pass right at the end at about 1900, 19,000, 19k. I think it sounds pretty okay. So now together with the other sounds, we now have something that sounds like this. I can drop the volume a little bit. And last but not least, I've got everything grouped in this group, and on here I've got the glue loaded up with the compression preset, mastering the glue too. And what this does, it basically glues all the individual parts of this group together and makes it sound as one whole loop instead of individual sounds. And if I turn it on, it's gonna make it a little bit louder. So this is without the compression. And this is with. So there you have it. I mean, we went from this to this. As you could hear, our loop is now a lot more louder. It improved a lot, and it has that fast rhythmic content going on that you hear a lot in Neurofunk Drum and Bass. I hope you enjoyed this video on the first Sound Design Saturday. I actually like to do a little bit more different kind of things, and I actually enjoyed making this video a lot. So I am gonna do 2 videos of these. I wanted to say a week. I wished I could do 2 a week of these kind of videos. No, I'm gonna do 2 a month, probably on the 1st and 3rd Saturday a month, or the 2nd and 4th Saturday. Don't know. Maybe I do one on the 1st and 2nd, and none for the rest of the month. But I'm gonna promise you guys, there's gonna be 2 Sound Design Saturdays each month. I might do more in the upcoming future if I find out that I have the time to do that. But at this point, I think 2 a month is already a lot more. If you have any questions regarding this video, then please click the bottom left to tweet your questions at Artifact Studios, because that makes it a lot more easy for me to answer your questions. If you want to get some feedback on your own music, or you want to have some feedback on stuff that you did regarding this tutorial, or maybe you have a question that you want to ask me but you don't have Twitter, then you can register at my website, and you also get an account for the forum where you can post your music or ask me questions, and I'll get back at you as soon as possible. I don't look at my forum each particular day, because there's a lot I need to do every day. There's a lot more stuff that I need to check, but I will get back at you within 2 or 3 days. I hope you enjoyed the video. There's gonna be more of these. I actually want to ask you if you have a particular thing you want me to talk about in the upcoming Sound Design Saturdays, because I don't know what I'm gonna talk about the next time. So if you have anything you think is worthy to make a Sound Design Saturday video about, then please let me know in the comment section below, and I hope you have a nice day. See ya!